Globalisation used to mean, by and large, that businesses expanded from developed to emerging economies. But now it flows in both directions, and increasingly also from one developing economy to another. CNBC Africa's Samantha spoke to Hans-Paul Burkner, who's chairman of the Boston Consulting Group, for more.
Absolutely. We see many new global challenges coming from China, from India, but from emerging markets all over the world. And these may not be household names, but they will be over the coming years. And already today, some of them are challenging existing world market leaders. Think of Huawei in telecom equipment, think of Haier in white goods. These are outstanding companies, and they are really expanding worldwide and occupying very strong positions. And there will be many, many more names coming up over the next several years.
So clearly disrupting the status quo, but do you see them as having the sustainable business practices that are needed to have that sustainable business model? Because of course they could come up with the world's next innovation, but they need to be around for some time after that.
Well, globalizing is always a big challenge, and if you have been successful in China, India or in Brazil, does not necessarily mean that you will be successful all over the world. So you have to really become a global company. You have to change your organizational structure, your leadership, your understanding of customers who are not the same everywhere in the world. You have to come up with new products, innovations, as you said, and that will take huge efforts. Some of them will succeed, some of them will not succeed, but clearly with so many companies, so many entrepreneurs making enormous efforts from the emerging markets, many of them will succeed, and we'll see a lot more innovation coming from emerging markets, and many of them will sustain that success.
In order to, of course, remain competitive, the world's best and leading companies as it stands right now need to ensure that their business processes are still competitive. I mean, so what would you say are the key aspects of a business process right now that needs to be in place to ensure companies remain competitive?
Well, I think clearly there needs to be strong leadership, strong commitment from the leadership to understand that we are working in a global world, that the whole supply chains, all processes need to be continuously looked at, continuously improved, changed. There will be a lot of local activities, but there will be regional and global activities, and you have to adjust depending on the technologies. We could see some of the manufacturing really being global, but others will become local. And so I think companies need to be very agile. They need to change their view, and they need to adapt continuously. So they are no longer strategies for the next 10 years, they're a strategy for the next 2-3 years, and you need to do appropriate changes on the way.
Mm-hmm. Obviously speaking to you from Dalian in China, and no secret that China has great global ambitions when it comes to sectors across the board right now, but a lot of questions being asked about China's growth path, moving towards a consumption-driven economy, refocusing of the economy, reforms that are being put in place. And speaking to all the CEOs, speaking to a lot of the analysts that are based here, everyone's very optimistic around China's growth path. I mean, are you as optimistic as the general consensus is?
Well, absolutely. I think the potential for China is enormous going forward. We will have, as you mentioned beforehand, a more consumption-oriented economy. We'll see a lot more urbanization, meaning 10-12 million people moving from the countryside to the city every year, for whom you have to create housing, the infrastructure. You will have to have more investments in social infrastructure, in education, in healthcare, and you will have also a lot more opening up of the private sector. So the government, as Premier Li said yesterday, will provide more support for the private sector, opening up the economy for the private sector, and therefore we'll see a lot more competition, a lot more private initiative, more entrepreneurship, and that will create enormous stimuli for China going forward, so that we will continue to see high growth rates, 7-8%, maybe not quite the 10, 11, 12 that we saw in the past, but it's still a very, very strong momentum.